We either need to have them join or we join them. So I think there's about 10 there and there's about
Is,
13 of us.
is Nick over there right now? I don't know how that happened, but
Yeah, he is over there. He's got the people in the, if you go check your Google chat, there's a link there.
maybe
So I just wanted to mention it.
can he just tell everyone to come on over here?
Okay, I'll send a
Can
link.
yeah, send the link over there, Priya. That'd be
Okay.
great. We'll
No
give it
problem.
another few minutes in the context of process improvement and thinking on our feet here is a perfect opportunity. It's like more people are jumping on here, which is good. Here's everybody. There we go. Welcome, everybody. For those of you jumping on that were in the other meeting, perfect example of process improvement. Sorry about that. For those of you who missed our opening act, Russ Bellotti and Michael Thompson gave a little spiel on the hybrid conference room that they built and gave an example and took to UC Tech as a presentation. So Russ's screen has both Russ and Michael there. Sorry about the technical difficulties for those jumping on, but perfect opportunity for process improvement. So thanks everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it. And we apologize for taking up everybody's time that we were jumping around from meeting to meeting, but all the need for the focus on process improvement. So we are recording the meeting. Is everybody okay with us recording the meeting? If not, please speak up now. Wonderful. Thank you all. We really appreciate this. As many of you know, and some of you are new and may not know, this has been a really big grassroots movement to get a community of practice up and running around the concept of process. As many of you know, it's very dear to our hearts at the Business Process Management Office. I will go as far as say I think it's the most important thing in the administration while Mark Fisher's here. Besides the solar flares that might be hitting the campus or hit specifically on September 4th. So in and out of solar flares moving and mass coronal ejections that happened, one of the largest holes in the sun happened. I know I'm stealing Mike Cook's fire right now, but if you don't follow space weather, Berkeley has the Parker lunar probe very close to the surface of the sun, actually measuring solar wind. So if you don't know anything about that, the Parker probe is pretty cool, and it's our very own at Berkeley. So there's your little tidbits. But we're going to get started really quickly here. I'm going to share my screen before I hand it over to a few of my colleagues to get into the nitty gritty. Once I am up and running here. So today is September 7th. Thanks everybody for joining us. Today we'll have some introductions for anybody new and those who have been a part of the community. We probably won't ask for you to introduce yourselves. We'll talk a little bit about inside each unit. We do this every time just to get a feel for what's going on, to share some challenges and be transparent about process. We'll talk today's topic. I should have led with that, which is the keys to success for process improvement. And then we'll talk a little bit about best practices and have some time for question and answer. So right now I'm just going to open up the floor to anyone new here. We have a lot of new faces. So I'm just going to, what I'll do is go around because I can see who's on the screen next to me. And I'm going to open up my gallery view. and see who we have here. So if you are new to this meeting, I'm gonna start with Seamus because he is the first I see. So welcome, Seamus. You want to just give a quick introduction of where you sit on the campus and who you are?
Thanks, Seamus Wilmot, ABC Business Operations, overseeing BRS, Parking Transportation, and Mail Services. Good to see you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Seamus. Isabel, who has been out on maternity leave, is here with us. So welcome, Isabel.
Well, yeah, some of you probably just saw my baby on the call, but anyways, yeah, I'm with the Business Process Management Office. I'm actually one of the project managers. I also helped with the room that Russ and Michael are in. I was the remote person, so I got to hear how it sounds, and we even have a recording of how it sounds a lot better. So it's really cool. That we should show that video at some point. I think that's the real like impact right there. But anyways, go ahead, Chris.
So I'm going to move on. Susan Cass.
Hi, yeah, I work in the Office of the Registrar. I manage a unit that evaluates transfer credit and a degree audit for the undergraduate students.
Outstanding. Welcome, Susan. Eric Engblom.
So Eric Engblom, I'm the Director of Property Management and the Library Binding.
Awesome. Russ and Michael, you're next in the same room.
I'm Russ Filati. I'm a project manager working with the Business Process Management Office. I've focused a lot on campus safety initiatives, as well as a lot of the moving around campus within BRS and other places.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
Oh yeah, Michael, sorry, my bad.
No worries. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm Facilities and Operations Manager for the 4th Street building, and I'm now interested in all things space and sound related.
Awesome. Since we have people that have already been here and here, I'm just going to let everybody talk for a minute. So I'm going to go to Ben Perez. Ben's been here a bunch and has supported this, but I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Hi, everybody. Ben Perez from the Disability Compliance Office. I focus on architectural accessibility across the campus.
Thanks, Ben. Elena.
Hi, I'm Helena Weiss-Duman, and I'm in UDAR. I am Deputy Director of External Relations to Marketing Communications, focusing most on special projects and process improvement.
Awesome. Elena.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Elena Jiang here, CFO for the Administration Division.
Outstanding. Welcome, Elena. Emily Chow.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm in the School of Public Health. I'm a division manager there.
Welcome, Emily. Junie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Junie Kim from Berkeley Public Health. I was a change maker. I was in a change maker program before, and I got tons of help from my cook, Nick, and Russ. So I'm happy to be here. I plan to join regularly.
Welcome, Wendy Hillis.
Hi, I'm Wendy, AVC for Capital Strategies. I am the campus architect, and probably the biggest thing my office oversees is the campus master plan, long-range development plan, and environmental compliance within those documents.
Outstanding. Welcome, Wendy. Lucas.
Hi all, Lucas Carlton, Director of Operations for the Masters of Public Health program, the online version in Berkeley Public Health.
Great. Mark Fisher.
Hi, everybody. Mark Fisher, Vice Chancellor for Administration and BPMO. I'm very proud to say is part of the VCA team.
Thanks, Mark. Sally.
Hi, everyone. Sally McGarrahan, AVC for Facilities, and big fan of all of this process documentation and management.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. Allison Murray.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Allison Murray, Business Systems Analyst in People and Culture, supporting Berkeley Regional Services across all of their systems and functions. Happy to be here.
Welcome, Allison. Kim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim. I work in the School of Public Health on the HR and Academic Personnel team.
Welcome. Aisha.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm the Exhibits and Environmental Graphics Coordinator at the University Library in Library Communications.
Great. Welcome, Aisha. Karina.
Hello, everyone. Karina Saravia Butler. I am a Communications and Program Manager at the Office of Environment, Health, and Safety, and we've been working with Chris and Priya to get some of our processes on ProMap.
Great. Jessica Ross.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Ross. I'm the Assistant Director for the Center of Excellence in Maternal, Child, and Adolescent Health in the School of Public Health.
Great, welcome. Who have I not got? Stephanie? I think you're on mute, Stephanie.
Oh my goodness.
Heaven forbid.
There had to be one. I'm Stephanie Barba. I'm the Executive Assistant to the Dean at the School of Public Health, and I'm a part of the Changemaker program, which is being supported by the BPMO office.
Great. Janet Spear.
Hi, I'm Janet Spear. I'm the Director of Operations and Support for People and Culture, supporting anything related to HR across campus.
Great. Michelle Azarin. Two more. I promise we'll get through this quick.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I work in admissions and recruitment at the School of Public Health.
And Patricia.
Hi, Patricia Cruz. I work with the undergraduate program at the School of Public Health.
Great. And I think there was someone that dropped off that I couldn't see. If there's anybody I missed on the screen, feel free to introduce yourselves. All right, if I missed you, feel free to stop me at any time. I'm gonna move pretty quick and hand it off to my colleagues. Normally we don't introduce everybody. We had a lot of new faces today and we really, really appreciate that. So I promise next time we will not introduce everybody, just the new people. It's really great to have the problem of taking too long to introduce people. That's really exciting. If you've ever tried to build a community of practice on your own as a grassroots movement, it is not easy. So we really appreciate everybody here and to see everybody's face and the interest in process. So thank you. What I'm going to do is just ask, give a few quick news and updates and then ask a few questions about what's happening in your unit, and then we'll get on to process improvement. So a couple news and updates for us. For those of you who know ProMap, we are working towards single sign-on. Thanks to Nick Ensley for all his work with IT. We are very close. If you are an existing user of ProMap, single sign-on is working. Why this is exciting is it will allow us to just sign on and see all the processes, and we've been working that are in the ProMap Central Repository Library. We're really close. So pretty soon we'll give you another update. But if you are an existing user, you may know that when you go to log in, it asks you for single sign-on or that option. So feel free to use that. We at BPMO, the second update is have been offering office hours to the campus every Wednesday. It is at this time. So we have one of these once a month. We are excited to say that that has also been a grassroots movement of all the BPMO members offering any kind of help that we can provide in the areas of process. And we are now extending that to project management and change management. So if you are on a project or a change agent on the campus or are embedded in process and you have questions, we can help. That session runs every Wednesday, starting at 11 to 11:45. There are slots on the calendar. I'm going to click over here. You can see if you click on it, there's some more information here on our website. So there's drop-in hours on anything you could possibly think of, how to book an appointment link there, 3/4 of the way down the screen. We obviously use the breakout rooms and the like. Mike, Nick, Priya, anything else you'd like to say on process office hours for the campus?
No, that's it. We're looking forward to seeing everyone there. Well, not all at the same time. Make an appointment.
So I will say that both process hours and this champion network work hand in hand, spread the word. It has been growing rapidly and been great, not only for the campus, but for us. We as an office pride ourselves on learning, and we learn from you and all the problems you are trying to solve. So thank you for being a part of that. In the first, we're going to take a quick 10 minutes here just to talk about those who want to talk in your area. If you are seeing things process related, both good and bad, this is an opportunity for us all to be vulnerable and build trust together. You don't have to talk. We just open the floor up. If you are seeing good things, bad things, challenging things, process related, this is the time to share it and we can just hear about it. And if it is something we would like to solve in the future, we can take it to process hours. But this is an example of an area where building trust, vulnerability, and transparency around process can really grow this network. So I'm going to stop talking and just let those, if you just put your hand up, I can see you on the screen, hopefully, if you'd like to share some things or some breakthroughs or some big challenges going on around process in your unit. Anybody want to open up the sharing?
Any change makers? Looks like Eric raised his hand. Eric, do you have something?
Yeah, I'm pleased and embarrassed. I'll tell you the first. I'm pleased to say that operations have in the past been a sort of a laboratory for the showcase of some lean business practices for process improvement. But over the last 3 years, a lot of that has just taken a back seat to everything else until one of my managers presented a presentation for approval of a purchase using an A3. I'll let you all explain to everybody what an A3 is. And it was breathtaking what he did. And so it's got me thinking that it's time to resurrect the few things that we were doing that were very successful, such as we used to do them on a weekly basis. We'll do them on a quarterly basis, Kaizen meetings, where everybody is obligated to come up with just a simple suggestion of how we can reduce waste from our systems. Because just the maximization of their time and our resources are critical. So I'm embarrassed that I didn't think of how to resurrect this initiative in the past, but very grateful to the manager who did that with that A3.
That's really great, Eric. Thanks for sharing that. For those of you who do not know what an A3 is, it is a one-page document that really addresses problem solving. If you have a problem that you'd like to solve, you put it kind of on the paper and there's a template you can use. You can Google it. It comes out of Toyota in the continuous improvement world. But it really allows you to work through a problem on one page and work with others to solve it, the root cause, and put that in motion. So that's really great that those are used, and the discipline to use those somewhere on our campus is really wonderful. In a previous team, we used them pretty effectively as well. So that's really great to hear, Eric. Others who would like to share, be vulnerable about process or anything related in your area.
Looks like Helena raised her hand. Go ahead, Helena.
Yeah, maybe this is more of a needing some advice. So I'm trying to get input from key stakeholders and they decline my meetings, or, what do you do when people don't want to give input?
Actually, I will get to that in actually one of my slides.
Okay.
It's really great. Anyone else want to share anything they've been seeing as of late in your area?
Chris, I'm going to take over sharing so we can kind of start.
Take it away. I'm going to stop here. Let us move on. Okay.
Now, feel free, Chris. Are you okay if we move?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, yeah. So we'll go ahead and move forward, so we make sure we have time to cover. We do have a lot of things to cover here, and feel free to raise your hand. And Nick and Chris will be monitoring the chat hopefully, and if anyone raises their hands, if I don't see it, feel free to stop me and ask me questions along the way. Okay. So I'm going to give a quick spiel about a couple things, and then I'll pass it over to Nick to finish it off. And speaking of solar flares that Chris mentioned earlier, if you guys don't know anything about space weather, it is really fascinating and how it impacts our Wi-Fi issues, especially over the next year and a half. So it's a pretty big deal. It's a good thing to understand. So if you're having Wi-Fi issues, you know what's going on. All right, so let me go ahead and get through these slides here. So what is process improvement? And actually, before I start that, Chris and Nick haven't even seen this slide yet either. I kind of threw this in here. A little history lesson here. Does anybody know? And Chris isn't allowed to answer this question, but does anybody else know who this person is? Any hands? Any hands? I see Russ frantically Google searching. And
Alexander Graham Bell.
That's cheating. No, this man's name is Frederick Winslow Taylor. Does anybody, and Chris isn't allowed to answer, does anyone know what Frederick Winslow Taylor is the father of?
I do actually know this.
Yes.
He is
Yes,
the person
all right.
who, he's the person, his Taylorism is what he's famous for. So it was the idea, he invented the concept of assembly lines functionally, but like he created iterative process improvement as it applied to turn of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century manufacturing in the United States.
That's amazing.
I owe you lunch, Ben. That is
that.
wonderful.
That's amazing. Ben wins. Okay.
A lot of random useless knowledge.
That's great. That is right. So in 1911, Frederick Winslow Taylor, the father of scientific management and everything that Ben just mentioned as well, Taylorism, published the following 4 principles of scientific management. Replace rule of thumb work methods with methods based on scientific study of the tasks. Scientifically select, train, and develop each employee rather than leave them to train themselves. Provide detailed instructions and supervise how each worker performs in his or her discrete task. Divide work equally between managers and workers so that the managers apply scientific management principles to plan the work and the workers actually perform the tasks. Taylor basically defines ideas precisely about how to implement business processes efficiently. His belief was that this is possible only through enforced standardization of methods, adoption of best practices, work conditions, and cooperation. So I just wanted to mention this. So I'm gonna talk about a couple things like Six Sigma and Lean and whatnot. I'm just gonna kind of quickly glance over that. I think it's important for people to know that you know, business process improvement is you know, that thought has been happening for a long time, and it really started, you know, with Mr. Taylor's paper, and it's evolved over time, many iterations. Okay, so the definition of process, and I need to move this. Sorry, this everyone's picture here to the bottom of my screen. Here we go. So process improvement involves a business practice of identifying, analyzing, and improving business processes to optimize performance, meet best practice standards, or simply improve quality and the user experience for partners and end users. Okay, so it's important that all of us are on the same page as far as what is process improvement. I put a little quote here. So this was actually the foreword of a new book, and I put it down there if anyone's interested. I think the stuff's fascinating. Hopefully you will too someday, but if you're interested in this, it's a really great book by Paul Harmon. But the foreword of this book, I like this quote. So like blood vessels, they're talking about business processes, they fill it with life and determine its way and speed of value creation, as well as the cost to serve its customers base. Thus, processes reflect on not only organizational productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency, but also its reliability, complexity, and ultimately its culture. Okay, you know, with BPM, we can't stress the importance of enough of not just documenting business process, but knowing your process, living it, breathing it, and continuously checking in on the process, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in detail. And I also wanted to add, you know, we did name our team business process management. And if you ask 10 business process management, quote unquote, professionals, the definition of BPM, you probably get 10 slightly different answers. BPM in some worlds is IT focused and a lot about automation. And I know, you know, Janet's working hard and her team, they're also automating things, and Janet's on the same page here. So hopefully she agrees here. But it's important to know that poorly conceived or ill-managed business process can damage a company, right? Impeding productivity and efficiency. And if a bad process is automated as is, it can actually amplify poor performance, undermining business goals, right? So, so it's important to note that if we want to get to the point where we're really automating and using AI effectively in an effective future state, we have to document our processes, understand the current state, make improvements, make them efficient, and then automate, okay? So real quick, variety of optimization methodologies, right? So everyone's probably heard of Six Sigma and Lean, and I kind of talked about BPM. BPM, real quick, is an organizational discipline to look at processes holistically, which is the process architecture piece that we're building, and individually, right? It analyzes the current state and identifies areas of improvement to create a more efficient and effective future state, just like Six Sigma and Lean. Six Sigma is a methodology to reduce variations, primarily used in manufacturing and supply chain as well. Lean is also used in supply chain, and that's the methodology to remove waste. And there's benefits and there's pros and cons on lots of different tools and templates that are great to use in each one of these. So my takeaway here is that we don't need to be doing Six Sigma or doing Lean or BPM. We need to do what's best for our culture and the effort of the improvement effort, right? So BPM, our team, we use a little bit of everything. Eric mentioned the A3, that's directly from Six Sigma. We use a variation of the A3. We call it the one-page charter. So we've taken the best of what PMI has for, and Agile has, Six Sigma has, other methodologies that I'm not mentioning here, like Dr. Michael Hammer and Oliver White, and also some lean methodologies as well. So there is no right or wrong way to do process improvement. So I don't want people to get stuck on like, oh, we should all get Greenbelt trained or we should be Lean Six Sigma. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're doing what's best for our culture and using the tools that are best for us right now today, okay? So on that, two things I specifically want to talk about today, and we're going to focus primarily on the second one, but I wanted to kind of quickly talk about DMAIC, because DMAIC is really a big project-driven method improvement cycle that's Six Sigma derived, right? And so you might hear a lot about DMAIC projects. And so DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control, right? It's a great methodology and to follow if you have the right tools and the effort is large enough and you have data, right? So we don't have a lot of data here at Berkeley, and that's okay. We're going to hopefully get to the point where we do have good data and we're using data to make decisions. But steps 1, 2, and 3 is DMAIC spends a lot of time defining what the problem is, getting baseline measurements, analyzing, doing lots of root cause analysis and FMEAs, and using the Ketton-Trago decision-making model. A lot of great tools, but in some ways, this takes a lot of time. You know, so the perception of that people might get of like, oh, process improvement takes a long time. This is probably why people have that perception, right? This is a lot of work. It has its purpose. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of knowledge to really effectively use these tools, okay? And again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying this, in our opinion, this is the way we're trying to move forward. So we would like to spend a little bit more time, and I'm gonna pass it over to Nick here in a second, about PDCA. So PDCA stands for Plan, Do, Check, Act, right? And so this is also part of Six Sigma and Lean, and this is more of a lean methodology. So this method for improving processes and products continuously. So it's a circle, has no end. The PDCA cycle can repeat it again and again for continuous improvement. And I'll let Nick kind of go into a little bit details of how we can do that. But the idea of, in my opinion, and BPMO's opinion, for Berkeley, if we want to move things quickly, be efficient, have quick wins, really address the low-hanging fruit, we need to do a better job as far as, you know, getting things done quickly instead of spending, you know, 3 or 4 months in the define, measure, analyze stage before we're actually able to implement things. And sometimes, in my past experience with the DMAIC initiatives, you spend so much time planning, defining, and analyzing the data. By the time you come up with solutions, there's a new problem that you have to kind of go back and revisit again. So again, I'm not talking bad about DMAIC. There's a time and place for that. But today we want to focus on PDCA. And I apologize, I'm talking fast. So I just want to make sure I give Nick enough time to discuss. So as far as document and improve your business processes, you know, hopefully we're practicing what we're preaching. And so we put we documented this in ProMap. So engage with process sponsor and process owner, document the current state. In steps 3, identify and implement improvements and adhere and feedback. This is where the PDCA loop happens. And this is where Nick's going to go into a little bit of detail. What I'm going to talk about quickly are the different roles in the process improvement initiative. And I'm going to specifically spend a lot of time here on the sponsor part. And by the way, I didn't mention this earlier. I really appreciate all the new people that have come and the ELT members that are here as well. This is really great sponsor engagement, and it's really important that people from all levels of the organization are speaking the same language, and that the folks doing the work recognize that senior leadership recognizes the importance of doing this kind of work. Okay. I can't stress enough the importance of sponsor engagement. And in fact, I didn't put it on here, but this very first part, actually, if you Google this sentence right here, importance of sponsorship engagement, you'll get tons of results, pretty much saying the same thing, regardless if it's the Project Management Institute, Six Sigma, Agile, Lean, any kind of these methodologies, they all almost say the exact same thing, that they stress the importance of sponsorship engagement. As a matter of fact, PMI has this report, this Pulse of the Profession report that comes out every year. And the last one I read the other day was from 2021. I went back as far as 2014 because I just got tired of reading these and scanning through this. But since 2014 up till 2021, consistently the #1 thing that respondents from across the world, different industries said that the #1 driver of project success globally was sponsorship engagement. Six Sigma said the same thing. Agile, if you look at specific, they actually quote ProSci, which is the change management organization, that their own research shows that without an engaged sponsor, projects are 30% more likely to fail. So Helena, based on your question, as far as how do you get stakeholders to respond to your emails and show up to meetings, have an active sponsor, have a senior leader saying that, yes, this improvement initiative is important. I'm prioritizing this. And if you're on this, I'm pushing down to their management that it's important that they show up that they have the time available to do this. And maybe it's part of their Achieve Together, that everyone has a process improvement, 1 or 2 a year, that 5 or 10% of their time is set aside for process improvement initiatives. This is, in my opinion, I'm gonna get off my soapbox here in a second. This is where we need to get to for process maturity across Berkeley. If we really want to get things done quickly, we need to have that top-down sponsorship engagement to make sure that people know, the people that are going to be doing the work, that they have the time and that they're supported to give the time to do these types of things.
Mike, in conclusion, can I just say it a different way? The
Sure.
#1 reason why projects fail and process initiatives fail is lack of active sponsorship. That's what you will find if you Google that title.
Okay, so again, I kind of talked about this already, but the engage with sponsor and process owner. And at our last PCN, it was very specific to the role of the sponsor and types of sponsors and some tips and tricks on how to get sponsorship engagement. So you can go to our website and you can look at the past presentation. Unfortunately, we forgot to record it, but we do have a slide deck on that. This is a slide from that. So just real quick, role of the sponsor: a consistent set of roles for senior leaders and executives in times of change is participate visibly throughout the project. It's great if they kind of show up for kickoff meeting and again, reemphasize the importance of the change and that they have a sustained presence there. Communicate, support, and promote the change. I should also say, in addition to this sponsor, this is stakeholder, and I don't know if Chris wants to talk a little bit about this too. Is part of the plan, a phase of PDCA or define and DMAIC is really identifying not just the sponsor and process owner, but the stakeholders as well, right? So this goes beyond just the sponsor. It's also communicating, support, promoting the change across all the coalition of change here. Right there, build a coalition of sponsorship. So the sponsor must mobilize other key business leaders and stakeholders so they can advocate for the change and legitimize it as part of their organization.
The simplest way to remember it is ABC for sponsor: active and visible, build your coalition, and communicate actively. So if you don't remember anything else and you remember the ABCs of sponsorship, those are the 3.
Great. Before I pass it over to Nick, does anyone have any questions or comments? All right.
Hey, I've got a comment, Mike. For the importance of sponsor engagement, we had a recent project, and I'm not going to call out departments or whatever, but we weren't getting active participation from a department that we really desperately needed in order to move the project forward. And so reached out to our sponsor, who happened to be Mark, and just said, hey, we just want to make sure the prioritization of our initiative, because we're not getting the timely participation from another department, and we don't know what their priorities are, but perhaps he could help us understand them to see if we could get participation. And I didn't see, Mark, I don't know what the communication was, but all of a sudden the next day we were having people join our meetings and moving things along. So the sponsor can really help to set things straight when there's issues that you can't get through. And so I think to the issue that was previous about why aren't, we're not getting folks coming to the meetings, they're declining the meetings. I think that's a real example of where, understanding the priorities across the departments that are supposed to be representing a particular project, you can help get that understanding through your sponsor.
There was just a question in the chat just to summarize the ABCs, so that I did that in the chat just so people know it's a really simple way. If you can't remember what it means or what a sponsor should do, ABC is the easiest. I put it in the chat as per the question from Aisha.
All right, Nick, it's all yours.
All right, so thank you. And we're kind of building some parallels between how we do a process effort and how we lead a project. As Mike mentioned, we even use the same one-page charter when we begin these efforts. And that will happen as you're engaging the sponsor and the process owner, identifying the scope of the process you want to look at and some goals around what you want to improve. The next step after that is actually documenting the current state of that process. And we firmly believe that in order to improve anything, you need to understand where you currently are. And that's why a lot of the efforts we've been doing with individuals and departments on this call is documenting the current state of your process, illuminating how it's actually performing today, who's involved, those handoffs. So when we start working, when we are doing this work, or if you're going to be doing this work in your department, you want to look and see, is there any current documentation? Is this something you're creating new, or is there existing documentation that you need to look and see if it needs to be updated? Is this something we have in ProMap at the time, which again is our best practice we're using around standardizing, documenting, and sharing our processes? When you do this work, we want to make sure we have the right people involved. The individuals who do the work are the ones that are going to be able to tell you how the process is actually being done today. If we're at a higher level saying, this is how it goes, but we don't actually know the day-to-day work, we may not realize that things have changed and people are doing different parts of the process that we weren't aware of. So we'll make sure we get the right people around the table, whether that's in person or virtually like this in a Zoom session. So what we often do would actually involve those SMEs in a Zoom session, and we'll have either two people facilitating and other driving ProMap, or one person doing both. And we'll capture the SME's input on how does the process actually, what does the current state process actually look at? Once we do that, then we can also share that process back out with individuals that were in that session, but also a larger group. Oftentimes we'll have representation of SMEs from that particular process, but then we want to kind of share the output of that work to a larger group and give them an opportunity to provide feedback. And just real quick, I'm going to hop out of the slide and just kind of show that in ProMap. Again, we have this opportunity where we can share process links. So you can grab a mini-mode link and share that to individuals. And you can also provide feedback. And that feedback is available also to individuals you share the link with. So this gives us a way to, again, socialize the process with a larger group than just, the project team or whoever's working on that improvement effort, and to drive that feedback loop, which as we get to a little further on this PDCA cycle, helps drive continuous improvement. Now, while you're documenting current state, we want to focus on, how the process is today. But you're going to hear from SMEs, they're going to bring up pain points and ideas around future state improvements. So when we're going through, we'll actually notate in ProMap with a little tag that shows that, there's a future state improvement or a pain point as we go through and we're capturing that current state. We want to focus on the current state as we're just at the starting point, but those conversations are going to come up as you're involving the SMEs. So some optimal things that we want to get to that, you don't have to wait to have these to begin doing this work. If we have data that shows or reinforces what we're hearing about the process, how is it performing today? Those are things that are great. If we have it, let's use it. And then also to have you captured feedback, whether from staff that do the work or from the clients or participants of your external facing processes. What is the feedback about the process that we've been hearing? Now, the idea of documenting our process, it's it's not just to check off the box that we've documented. It is a very useful tool for us to engage in this continual loop of improvement. It helps us illuminate what is the current state of the process, bring visible what may be below the surface, and we don't really understand that without actually going through and documenting it. And it shouldn't be a one-time thing. It's something that, as your process changes, whether it's being, kind of changes from outside that are changing around your process has to adapt to it, or because you're making these process improvements that we want to focus on, you want to make sure you go back and you update that process documentation and again, share it. And we'll come back to that a little bit later too. All right, so after we get past current state, then we want to get into this PDCA cycle around identifying the problems and getting some solutions in place. And when we want to do this, like Mike said, we want to try and enable this idea of quick wins, finding these incremental improvements, and not try and do just large projects that are taking off huge bites at a time. Let's find these small things, get momentum, get them implemented, get it documented, get it changed, and continue to do this. So it's not a one big project at one time. It's something that we want to do continually. So once we get through and identify those problems, then we figure out, okay, what are some of those ways we can solve this? Again, trying to focus on quick wins. We'll put the actual solution in place, and we'll test to see how did it work. Again, if we have data, we might look at the data to see, okay, did we move the needle in a way that makes sense? If we don't have data, then we're going to be looking for feedback from the staff who do the work, or if it was a change that impacts the individuals that are on the receiving end of a process, we would want to check in with them and get feedback on, did this change improve things for you? Is this something we want to keep doing? If not, we roll it back. If it is, then we put it in place and we make this now the new standard of how we go forward. So real quick, I'm going to look to see, we have some chats in, so Susan asked about change management for the process. So
I can speak to that too, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Susan, that's a great question. The question was, how does change management fit into the process work? And I'll just speak lightly quickly because I know we're limited on time. This question has become huge. Change management's always been embedded in the PMI kind of project management stuff, but on the process front, it's becoming more and more. The biggest thing I will just say to simplify things, when we think about change management, the first question is, what is it? Right? So if we think about it from 5 buckets, it's the sponsorship, which we've already talked about. Get yourself an active sponsor, right? So this is the first place it fits in. If you write a quick charter, it's a 1-page, it can be written in a half hour. Your sponsor knows about it. They're endorsing it. They're helping you think about the people and remove roadblocks. So sponsorship is one, training is another, communication is another, coaching is another, and resistance management. So those are the 5 buckets, but to simplify those really quickly to answer your question, Susan, we talked a lot about sponsorship. Communication. How are you communicating the changes to your process and who needs to know? That's the communication bucket. Training. Who needs to be trained if these process changes change? How do you get them embedded in the fabric by making sure the people that use the process are trained to the process as it changed, right? Where is there resistance? That gets a little bit more detailed. I can take that offline, but if there is resistance to these changes, you need a resistance management plan to think about. And lastly, and one of the most important, is the coaching arm, which really goes to the middle management layer because they have the power for the direct reports to help the direct reports use the new process. So I spoke very quickly to those 5 levels and those 5 buckets of change management. It's one of the best questions ever, Susan, and I can go into way more detail with you offline, but those are the 5 areas that when we make any change to a process, we need to think about how to infuse them and what we call the comb, which works together with any project we run. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, I just added in the chat too. So Chris just mentioned the combs. We've actually documented, and again, although we're talking about process improvement, we look this as your managing project, right? Everything is a project. You should have a charter, at least on identifying what your problem is, what your objectives are, how you can measure success. Have a mini charter. That's why we have our 1-page charter to make it quick and simple. And we have built a what we call the comb, the project management and change management integration of the two. And when I sent, and Chris, again, if you want the detailed information, feel free to reach out and we can meet with you and give you the detailed information. But when I send out this presentation and this recording, I'll send a link to our change management and project management integration. And it has a lot of, we have like, our five levers of change, right? And, and what to do with at each step along the way with tools and templates and some guides.
So when it comes down to that, going through the current state, you understand who's involved with the process. And then when you start making decisions around what you want to improve or what those changes may be, you can identify who's going to be impacted. And that's where the change management, you can start putting those things in place that Chris was talking about. All right, so a couple quick questions in the chat. So Allison's asking about kind of the cyclical nature of the frequency of revisiting a process. And I would say it's active management of it. So when you get feedback, you look to see, is this something we need to address in the process? Whether it's, trying to fix, defects that are coming up, or streamlining a process, making things easier, or improving a service. As you get feedback, you're looking at a process. So you don't wait until it's so broke that you have to do a huge project. That ends up being more work than doing little incremental and maintenance. A little bit different question Michelle had about that kind of approach when it's a process that happens once a year. For those, what I would suggest is actually leading off wherever you need to start preparing for that process. You would have kind of like a kickoff review, and at the end of that cycle, when you complete that work, you'd kind of have a post-mortem review, and those should be places where you get feedback to make changes and improvements in your process. Now, a little bit different there is you're not going to be able to like really quickly put something in place. It depends on the process. If you've got like 10,000 that are going through on this once a year, then you might try something and then stop midstream and put it back the way it was if it didn't work. So it depends on the process, but definitely that's something to look at. All right, so once we actually have looked at the solutions we put in place, we've checked them out, we want to make sure that then we kind of close the loop. We want to make sure we go back to that current state documentation. We update and publish the new process that we decided, hey, we like these changes and this is what we're going to do going forward. You want to make sure that we share that widely with the subject matter experts and any stakeholders that are impacted by that change. Some things as a kind of cultural change, can we start looking at reinforcing this by putting this into our job goals, our achieve together goals? Can we try and have process adherence be part of how people look at how we do business at our different departments at UC Berkeley?
And can I just say one thing, Nick? This is a really great opportunity. Helena just asked a question about this too, which is you're all here because you care about process. If you can carry these up in your achieve together, it's a very important goal. Have a goal. You can define your own goals. Have a process goal. Have a project goal. Talk to your manager about it. Say, hey, I really want to spend an hour a week on process. Can I put it on my calendar? Can I hold myself accountable? In order to really sustain this type of work, it has to be embedded in the fabric of the institution and our achieve together. And that is up to us as the employee to show the importance and drive this. It should eventually become a performance evaluation goal. There's no reason why it is not today. Even if it's small, 5, 10%, 1 hour a week, even showing up to this meeting once a month for this populace is more than you may have been doing before, and that is wonderful.
Just think if we had every staff member at UC Berkeley looking at one process that they have a hand in, and they wanted to make small improvements in that one process. If everyone was doing that, we'd be transforming this entire organization.
In fact, there are studies. Yeah, there are studies that show 2 minutes a day in organizations of 30,000 people, what 2 minutes a day actually means. And the most famous one is Toyota versus Ford. And if you go Google that and you look at what Toyota did, they did small incremental things and got much further along than Ford did in the car industry by Ford trying to do these giant motions. And there's a graph. And if you Google Toyota versus Ford on a curve, you see the power of incremental, small, literal 2-minute changes in organizations big like ours. And then you multiply that across the UC. If we were measuring that in organizations across the entire 11 schools, if everybody did 2 minutes a week of a continuous improvement process effort across the entire UC, we'd be in an amazing place.
So this idea of reinforcing, the change, the improvement, getting this to be a way how we think about things. There's a couple tools in ProMat that have recently been made available. So if there is a unit here that's of interest, when I talk about this, if this is something you'd like to do, feel free to hit me up. There is a training module that is now a free add-on that we're going to be able to use. And what this would do is when you make changes to a process, you could actually kick out a notification requirement for your users that are in a role impacted by that change. And they'd have to go then review and basically sign off that they reviewed that new process. It also has a way to do onboarding training for individuals in a role. They've been able to look at all the processes that are touched by that role and sign off on competencies and training. So we haven't delved into it too much. This is pretty new, but if there's anyone interested, like to partner around trying to delve into it and see how it would work, let me know.
So I know, sorry, Nick, I have to cut you off. We're almost out of time. We've got about 3 minutes. Do you have anything else, or?
No, I was just gonna say it ends with the feedback cycle, just like we talked about before. Let's get this, the new changes, we get feedback on there, and it goes back to the same cycle. We don't have to go all the way back, but we want to make sure we're continually looking for feedback and that small quick wins.
I just want to share what Mark put in the chat because it's probably one of the most powerful, conclusive for this meeting. So Mark, you just wrote in the chat that incremental change is powerful and aligns with the resources that we have at hand. He said, make lemonade when you have lemons, right? So that is true. We all know and hear more about budget constraints, no money. That is what we are talking about with incremental small changes. So thanks for that, Mark. I really appreciate that.
And I just wanted to, I'm sharing my screen real quick, just give me 30 seconds here. On our page, everyone, hopefully knows that the Process Champion Network, this meeting has its own section on our webpage that has a lot of great information, specifically around the metrics that we're capturing, right? So not just process created, but process views. And you can actually drill down to your specific area and actually see process metrics by group. So you can kind of see, and this is why it's important to spread the information. Like if you're developing processes, make sure that it's published and people can actually see it, and make sure that people are using it. Sorry, don't mean to pick on public health, as an example, but, and I know we need to kind of get into it. Nick and I are updating this for the next fiscal year, but you'll see, you can kind of see when Berkeley Public Health came in, started publishing it, and the process is created. And there are only 16 processes created and published, but they have a significant amount of views. And this isn't going into this new fiscal year yet. So people in public health are looking at the processes that are being created, right? So, and we have all this kind of data, right? So make sure you publish it, make sure people can see it, and then you can check. And if you're not getting views, if people are using the process, why? Did they not know about it? Then kind of kick into your change management campaign. So there's a lot of resources out there for everybody to kind of really, start moving these things forward. Do we have any last questions or comments before we start losing people? I really appreciate everybody's time for showing up. This is really important to us, and it's extremely I'm extremely grateful and thankful for everyone for taking the time to join us, and hopefully spread the word about the importance of process and process improvement. And let's start working
I think
together.
Susan has a.
I just had one thing to share, Mike, and this
Sure.
is brought up in a committee we're on, and I'm not sure if you were there, but the other metaphor I think of, and to add to Mark's, is Apollo 13. And I don't know if you all have seen the movie, but they had a problem with their ship in space, and there's this one scene where they're down in NASA, and this guy dumps all this equipment on a table and says, "This is all they have. Come up with a solution." And so I've tried to switch my mindset to say, maybe we have all we need. How would we change our work? Just this is a resource, for example. If we had that view, what could we do? Because that's within our power control. And so that's one perspective I'm trying to adopt in my work here.
No, that's actually really great. And in fact, sometimes just documenting the process is a win, right? Maybe it doesn't need to be improved at all. Maybe people just don't even know what to do. Right? Just document it, get everybody in the right room, say, hey, this is what we do. That's a win. Just that alone.
Big win. That can be the biggest win.
Right. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Again,
We
send out
really
this recording
appreciate
and
it.
the slides. Thank you.